Carrying on with Mark's Gospel, Mark 2, 13 to 17. Jesus' ministry continues. Once more he went away to the lakeside. All the crowd came to him and he taught them there. As he went along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, at his seat in the custom house. And he said to him, "Follow me." And Levi rose and followed him. When Jesus was at table in his house, many bad characters, tax gatherers and others, were seated with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. Some doctors of the law who were Pharisees noticed him eating in this bad company. And they said to his disciples, "He eats with tax gatherers and sinners." Jesus heard it and said to them, "It is not the healthy that need a doctor, but the sick. I did not come to invite virtuous people, but sinners." Just wanted to reflect on these two simple passages. Jesus' call of Levi, which is probably not the Matthew who wrote Matthew's Gospel, and then going to eat with people of ill repute. This is a great picture of the way God looks at us. This is a picture of God's heart and the way he reaches out to absolutely everyone. It is catastrophically simple, this passage. We knew that in the first part of his ministry, Jesus reaches out to everyone, and everybody nods at this point. There were crowds, there were lepers, there was the lame man, there's a whole range of people. But when we get to the tax gatherers, we are really moving into the hardcore outsiders. Because actually, although it seems quite polite, this very simple little thing where Jesus says to Levi, "Follow me," it's got all the meaning of that dealing with Zacchaeus from up the tree. They're doing the same job. Although, unlike Zacchaeus, Levi is caught actually doing the job, not being up a tree. He's actually doing the tax collector bit, which was awful. Not only were they thoroughly dishonest, they got away with it. They were traitors. They worked for the occupying power. They were always dealing with Gentiles. And everything was bad about it. And Jesus says, "Come with me, be a disciple." Might not have been one of the 12, but there's a lot of other disciples except the 12. Wow. God reaches out to this person. He doesn't say, "This is an outsider." It's almost as though Jesus, if I said, "But this is an outsider," Jesus would say, what do you mean? I don't do outsiders. This is the heart of God. Now, I gather from the Greek, when it says, "and then they went to his house," it doesn't mean Levi's house. It means Jesus' house, which I probably thought was a hard day for Peter's mother-in-law again. We hope she was well. But they all went round to eat with Jesus. And you know what that means? Under his roof, shalom, peace, with all this lot. That is very hard. It was very hard for them. It's all very well to preach about Jesus reaches out to everyone and we all feel warm and we all nod. But for them it was very difficult, and for me it's very difficult. And if you scratch the surface of yourself, it's very difficult as well. This is what God's heart is like. For them, they said, these men are sinners, and so they're not upholding the honor of God. Well, that's a good place to start. But they're also sinners, and they're getting away with it, and they're also rich, making money out of us, and they're also helping the Romans who are giving us a hard time, and everything about them we hate. They are outsiders. And there was lots of outsiders in those days, Not just the Romans were outsiders, but it was a very tribal structure. My family was an insiders, other families were outsiders. My tribe were insiders, other tribes were outsiders. Certainly the Jews were insiders and everybody else was an outsider. And there were different clans, and there were different guilds, craft guilds, and there were all sorts of different... It was a very stratified society with insiders and outsiders. We are like that. You don't have to be particularly tricky to be a person with insiders and outsiders. Our society is very keen on it at the moment, an increase of localism. Whatever you made of that Scottish nationalist business, most of the conversation at that period, before that amazing election thing, was us and them. It was always us and them. There's a strand of localism in Cornwall. It's very much us and them, and I can tell you, I am them. All right? Mind you, it's as much the same between Newlyn and Penzance, isn't it? Just crossing over the little river down there between the two, and you feel, where am I? This in-group and out-group, insiders and outsiders. At a personal level, just think for a moment, who are your insiders, your family and your friends? People who are like you, or people whom you like, or even better, people who like you. They tend to be insiders and family and friends. But even if family is an insider, most big families have got some black sheep who are secretly outsiders. Even in a church, we're all one in Christ, but we also know that there are insiders and outsiders. I was searching my heart about this, and I thought, who are my insiders and outsiders? It's quite a personal thing, really, isn't it? I'm just thinking, people who really run down Jesus Christ, I find them really outsiders. You know, Dawkins drives me absolutely bananas. Completely an outsider. On the other hand of the scale, I'm running down the prom as I usually do on a Saturday afternoon. How is it that certain groups of people manage to cover the whole prom like this, and you can't get through? And in fact, if they see you coming, they link arms. I'm thinking, these people are my outsiders, just like the ones with the small dogs with the long extendable leads. Who are these people? They are my outsiders. Again, it doesn't have anybody in this church in this category, but I have suffered from this in previous churches, in previous circuits. The person, often a large, noisy lady who always comes at Christmas and tells me about it, and tells me what a privilege it is that she does come for me, and she'll see me next year. And people who smell. So you can see outsiders are of all sorts, aren't they? And you'll love all the people I've mentioned, but there will be other people you don't. And Jesus says, actually, I've invited Dawkins for a chat. I'm actually walking along the prom, making one more. Sit down with a person who smells. Delighted about the lady who comes once a year. It's the heart of God. He says, he invites them. He just says, follow me, be with me, be a disciple of mine. Come under my roof. That's what we're called to do. That's the heart of God. But then, of course, we get accused, as he was accused, of inclusivism. Everybody's all right, everybody's here. They said, this is terrible, this is drastic, this is awful. You can't be inclusive in a sort of wet, liberal way. Everybody's okay, so long as everybody's okay. So they criticise Jesus of this. Total compromise, no standards, no line drawing, no nothing. It's terrible. You can see all the reasons for why. Because some terrible people are terrible. We're not just talking about prejudice here. These people on the prom, they don't let me get through. They are actually terrible. And so Jesus, but it's not inclusivism. You see, Jesus says, actually, he said, apart from you Pharisees who are absolutely perfect, and of course, don't worry about that, lovely put down. He says, these people are sick and they need a doctor. He didn't say they're okay. He just said they're not outsiders. In fact, they're all outsiders. The leper, and the lame man who needs forgiveness, and the tax collector, and all of you are all outsiders, he says. And actually the welcome is to follow me, which is a welcome to a complete change of life, and a welcome to come under my roof. To be at shalom with me is a welcome to transformation. The heart of God and the power of God go completely together. He basically says, you're all welcome because none of you are well for different reasons. But I can welcome you because I can make you well. You remember a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about 3 weeks ago, I think, about the leper, where Jesus stretched out his arm and he either caught leprosy or the leper caught health. He welcomes the leper. He could have embraced the leper. But the leper is changed in the embracing. It's the power of God with the heart of God. I think we need to sense that if we are going to have the heart of God to reach out to all these people, we do not do so unless we do so in the power of the Spirit. That people who are welcome can be changed. That their hearts can be changed. That their lives can be changed. You know, we've fallen into two categories, I think, within the church. One like the Pharisees, and we're a bit like those people you see dealing with Ebola. Not the poor people in Africa, but the sort of people you get when anybody comes within 1,000 miles of us in Western Europe. And all these people turn up with these great noddy suits, as we call them, you know, with all these great, like Michelin man sort of thing, with all the oxygen and the masks and all that sort of thing, walking around. I'm safe, but they're not. I'm in, but they're not. I'm saved, but they're not. And in fact, I'm very worried about them. I don't want to be infected by them. Now, I sympathize with that in terms of Ebola, but in terms of dealing with sinners, that's the feel. That was the feel. And then the inclusive liberals say, oh, that's really terrible. Now, what you want to be doing is just going in there and hugging people and kissing people and catching Ebola. This is not it either. Jesus doesn't do either, you see. He reaches out to them. And as he reached out to the leper and embraced the leper, he said, oh, don't do that, I couldn't do that. No, they're really an outside person. They're sick and they're impure and everything's wrong with it. I couldn't do that. And Jesus reaches out to this person. And then, to use the phrase from Monty Python, you have got an ex-leper. Because they're changed. Because that's what he welcomes them to. And I believe that if we are called as disciples to reach out to those who we don't reach out because they're outsiders and we find them difficult, because that is the heart of God. And Jesus says to his disciples, and it's easy for us to miss this, you want to be like this. This is how I model it. This is what I do. But he also says, this is not just a sort of an invasion of anything goes. It is that I change things. I reach people for good. Now, this part of St. Mark's Gospel, as we see this, these are not just isolated incidents. You need to reach out to everybody. You need to reach out to them with the power of God. What is unfolding here is that it's a completely new way of looking at the world and at life. They just don't get it at all. I don't know if you remember in the great days before that dead hand of sat-navs descended on our land. You remember we used to use maps? I still do. But occasionally occasionally, certainly with local maps, where I've been talking to somebody who's trying to explain to me how to get to their house on the phone, before Google Maps and before all that stuff, and you'd be listening to these directions and then you'd say, are we looking at the same map? And you still get that sense of, are we on the same page? It's a bit like one of these wonderful ecumenical services where somebody says, we're not going to sing hymn number 25, we're going to sing 125. And then you realize he's got a pink book and you've got a blue book, and it's not going to help. What is being revealed here by Jesus Christ is not that living as a Christian is a new route on the same map. It is living on a different map. A different moral landscape, a different way of looking at things. It's a complete change of view. The kingdom is not like the world, and we are people who are called to a different map, not just a different route. And those disciples are slowly dawning upon them. Jesus keeps on doing nice things which aren't quite normal. He eats with people, that's great, but not the right people. He goes to the synagogue and then says all the wrong things. And every time there's this grating, and they have to come to terms with this. And so do we. It's a different map. Instead of a stratification of society between in people and out people, insiders and outsiders, friends and enemies, light and dark, hopeful people and hopeless people, people who are okay and people who are not okay, all the things that we do to classify things, it's all gone. No, he said, I can't see it at all. Where is all these lines? I just don't see it. I'm thinking, this is not the same map. And yet, something else is developing here. There's another line being drawn. It's not just some liberal wet chaos. Because as he reaches out, there's another line being drawn by the people. You see, Levi, when Jesus called Levi, follow me, Levi doesn't have to follow him. He could have said, oh, no, I'm doing very well as I am, mate. When he'd invited all Levi's mates under his roof, they say, we're very busy collecting taxes. And so there's a new line, not drawn by us, or even by Jesus in the sense that it's exclusive, but drawn by people who self-exclude. It's a line that is drawn, a landscape that is drawn, not by who is welcome, but by who will receive the welcome. Who is saying yes or no to Jesus. And they need to come to terms with that. Throw out the other stuff and start thinking, this might be a leper, this might be a Gentile, this might be a Roman, this may be a prostitute, this may be a woman, but actually what's important is who's saying yes to Jesus, not who they are. It's a different map. I have to come to terms with that map. As a church, as a community, as Christians, if you are disciples, you are coming to terms with a new geography, which looks at all these people with the love of God and is saying, really, the real thing about them is, are they saying yes to Jesus or not? Or are they saying no to Jesus? And so we don't become a wet, watery church where I stand up at the beginning and I don't know some of you and I say, we Christians. You don't know. But from ourselves as well. In dealing with our mission, we are dealing with people to bring them to Christ, not just to be nice people or to be friends of ours or to bring them under our roof. Oh, Lord, bring more people to church, so they should be under our roof, but under his roof. We are not a church that can say, it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you come. Because we challenge you, as Christ did, to follow Christ, to come under his roof, which is a big challenge. We have a different geography. And for myself, I have to say, if this is a different map, where am I on it? Just because I'm a minister doesn't mean I'm an in-person. Most Methodists think that most Methodist ministers are definitely insiders. I mean, where else is there to be inside than being a minister, goodness sake? But that's not true. I'm like everybody else. I'm either brought to Christ because I've said, yes, I will follow you day in and day out. I will live under your roof, and thus I am drawn in. Or I'm an outsider because I say, no, really, I'm just doing the job wearing a dog collar. And so for all of you, where are you? Are you saying to Jesus, yes, I will follow you day by day. I will live under your roof in shalom and be changed. Or are you saying, I'm an insider because I've always belonged to the church. I'm an insider because people like me. I'm an insider because I'm on a committee. I'm an insider because of this. That's not the right map. The new map is, where are you with Christ? He's reached out to you, which just brings me to where I want to finish, because this is what I really felt. I really have a heart for all these people when I realize where I've come from. You notice that some people who do the most amazing things for causes, like, say, Macmillan's Nurses, people who sort of do sponsored runs from here to John O'Groats sort of thing, or all those amazing events, scratch the surface and you will find that one member of their family, an elderly member or whatever, has benefited hugely from Macmillan Nurses. They are keen that everyone else should know because they have received. It's when I realized that I have been reached out to by God when I was very much an outsider from his point of view, that I understand what it is for other people, that I understand his heart for them. It's when I remember that I'm not an insider because I was born a Methodist, but I'm an insider because he reached out to me when I was fairly mediocre. Or to use the verses from Ephesians 2. At that time you were far away from Christ. St. Paul says the worst thing in those days, you were foreigners. But now you who used to be far away have been brought near by the sacrificial death of Christ. If each one of us here knows that we were far away from God, but he reached out to us in love. He was relentless in his love and reached out to us and brought us to himself and says, follow me, come under my roof, be changed. I love you this much. Then what less can you do for others? What less can you do? That they come and we come. I said to Jane, we were sorting out the music. We sorted out the music. I had to confess I've been changing the songs all through the week. But actually, I had it last night. I didn't like to ring up, but I wanted to sing clean hands or dirty hands, brown eyes or blue. You know that? Ah, great. Pale cheeks or rosy cheeks, Jesus loves you. That is it's so profound. So profound. Anyway, the band, talking about music, the band are going to just come and reassemble themselves. We're not doing communion this morning. We're just going to have a time of a quiet worship, but I also want you to think through some of this. Where are you on God's map? Are you, as I often am, on the wrong map? And we're going to start by just worshipping and singing, Lord, you have my heart and I will search for yours. Very often I think this is a challenge to, am I going to be following Jesus? But the second phrase, and I will search for yours, I will search for the Lord's heart. I need to be on his map. That's the definitive one, you know. I will search for your heart, Lord. Show me other people. Show me myself. Show me your great love. Show me the power that goes with it. Reveal where it is today. Let's stand and sing this, shall we?